The executive suite of Vance Enterprises operated on a frequency of hushed reverence and absolute efficiency. At the apex of this glass monolith sat Elena Vance, 32, ruthlessly sharp, and universally acknowledged as the most formidable alpha in the financial district. To the board of directors, Elena was an ice-sculpted titan who turned failing conglomerates into gold reserves. To her subordinates, she was an untouchable sovereign whose commanding scent of winter cedar and electrified ozone was kept under immaculate suppression. Employees often forgot she was an alpha until her golden eyes hardened during a negotiation. She did not socialize. She did not take lovers to public functions. And she certainly did not tolerate emotional disruption on her floor. Yet, for the past 7 weeks, an uncharacteristic restlessness had taken root behind Elena's stoic ribcage. It was an instinctual ache, an alpha predator's low, persistent thrum that she could neither rationalize with logic nor drown out with espresso. Every night when she returned to her penthouse, her senses reached out for a memory shrouded in darkness. Rain-slicked glass, a blackout at the winter solstice masquerade gala, and the trembling scent of sweet vanilla blossom wrapped in rain. She had held someone in the shadowed alcove of the library that night, a vulnerable Omega whose heat had fractured through defective suppressants during the storm. In the darkness, masked and disoriented by biological fervor, Elena had protected her, claimed her, and murmured promises into silk-soft hair. But when emergency generators surged back to life at dawn, the girl had vanished, leaving behind only the ghost of vanilla and a silver ribbon. For 49 days, Elena had deployed security teams to scour guest lists, but the mysterious Omega remained a ghost. Elena exhaled a sharp breath, adjusting the silver cuffs of her suit as she stepped out of her corner office. It was 7:30 p.m. on a stormy Tuesday. The 42nd floor was abandoned, save for ambient desk lamps and rain lashing against the windows. Her gaze shifted naturally to the desk stationed 12 feet from her glass doors. There sat Clara Reed. Clara had been Elena's executive assistant for nearly 2 years. 24 years old, with chestnut hair pinned into a neat bun and oversized glasses framing wide hazel eyes. Clara was an Omega, though one would hardly know it from the industrial medical scent blockers she wore religiously every day. To the rest of the office, Clara smelled of nothing more than mild soap and paper. She was quiet, meticulously organized, and possessed a gentle grace that kept Elena's corporate life running smoothly. Lately, however, Elena's observational instincts had registered concerning shifts in her assistant's routine. Over the past 3 weeks, Clara had grown paler. The tailored blouses she usually wore had been swapped for loose-knit sweaters that swallowed her frame. She had abandoned her morning tea in favor of plain ice water with ginger slices. 3 times this week, Elena had caught the faint vibration of exhaustion in Clara's voice during briefings. Elena told herself it was seasonal fatigue. She even instructed HR to deposit an anonymous wellness bonus into Clara's account and mandate a 4-day weekend. But Clara stubbornly stayed at her post. As Elena walked toward the kitchen to refill her glass before a teleconference, she noticed the faint glow of the hallway light. The door to the private executive restroom was slightly ajar. A low, muffled sound drifted out into the quiet corridor. It was a shaky, ragged gasp. The unmistakable sound of someone trying desperately to stifle a sob. Elena froze. Her heels made no sound on the plush carpet as her head tilted. Her alpha instincts, usually locked behind discipline, flared instantly at the sound of distress on her territory. She took 2 quiet steps toward the door, her hand hovering over the handle. She intended to knock to offer inquiry or call medical staff. But before her knuckles touched the wood, the soft click of a lock sounded inside, and hurried footsteps retreated toward the service stairwell exit. By the time Elena pushed the door open, the restroom was empty. The air inside was cool and sterile, smelling faintly of lemon disinfectant. But beneath the citrus agents, Elena's sharpened senses caught something extraordinary. A tiny micro-tear in a scent blocker. A microscopic wisp of distress pheromones hovering in the humid air above the sink. Sweet vanilla blossom. Heavy with anxiety, exhaustion, and rain. Elena's heart slammed against her sternum with physical force. Her pupils dilated, the golden ring around her irises flaring bright as her chest tightened. No, she thought, her mind racing. It couldn't be. That scent was impossible. Clara wore scent blockers so heavy they masked her subgender entirely. Why would she suddenly smell like? Elena's gaze fell to the stainless steel waste bin tucked beside the vanity. The lid was slightly askew. Lying right on top of clean paper towels was a small white cylinder with a digital screen. Driven by a surge of protective compulsion that bypassed her rational mind completely, Elena stepped forward. Her fingers reached down into the clean bin and lifted the object. It was an advanced digital pregnancy test. On the glowing screen, displayed in crisp black lettering, were 2 words: pregnant, 7+ weeks. Elena stood frozen under the fluorescent lights, the stick trembling slightly between her fingers. 7 weeks. Exactly 49 days. Exactly the timeline of the winter solstice masquerade blackout. Slowly, Elena turned her head toward the door, her breathing shallow as the puzzle pieces violently locked into place. The loose sweaters. The morning nausea disguised as ginger tea. The terror in Clara's eyes whenever the gala was mentioned. Her quiet, shy, indispensable Omega assistant wasn't just working late. Clara Reed was carrying Elena Vance's child, and she was terrified, alone, and planning to hide it from the entire world. The display of the pregnancy test glowed in the quiet restroom. Elena closed her eyes, forcing her breathing into a measured rhythm. Right now, her heart hammered against her ribs with the protective ferocity of a cornered wolf. She slipped the test into her blazer pocket over her heart. When she stepped out into the corridor of the 42nd floor, rain lashed against the glass panes. Down the hallway, illuminated by a desk lamp, Clara hurriedly packed her tote bag. Her hands shook visibly. A stack of folders slipped from her fingers, scattering across her desk. With a gasp, Clara dropped to her knees to gather them, trembling under her oversized sweater. Elena moved across the carpeted floor. With a deliberate flick of her wrist, she pressed the central security lock beside the elevator bank. Click. The heavy glass doors sealed shut. The 42nd floor was isolated from guards below. Clara flinched at the sound. She looked up from the floor, clutching files to her chest like a shield. Her hazel eyes were wide behind oversized glasses, her pale face drained of color as Elena emerged from the shadows. "Ms. Vance," Clara breathed against the rain. "I apologized for the noise. I dropped the reports. I was finishing up the files for your Tokyo call before leaving." Elena walked over to Clara's desk and knelt gracefully on the carpet right beside her, bringing their eyes to the exact same level. Up close, Elena could see the subtle toll the past 7 weeks had taken on her Omega. There were shadows beneath Clara's eyes. Her lower lip was bruised where she had bitten it to suppress nausea. But beneath the sting of scent blockers, Elena's heightened senses caught another microscopic tremor of sweetness: warm vanilla, fresh rain, and delicate nesting pheromones. "Leave the papers, Clara," Elena murmured. Her voice, usually sharp like cut glass, was low and laced with an involuntary rumble of soothing alpha reassurance. Clara blinked in shock, her hands freezing on the folders. She had worked for Elena Vance for 2 years and had never once heard that gentle timbre in her employer's voice. "Ms. Vance," Clara whispered. "Is something wrong with the itinerary?" Elena reached out. Her warm fingers brushed against the back of Clara's trembling hand. At the contact, a jolt of warmth sparked between their skin. Clara let out a soft intake of breath, her eyelids fluttering as her instincts recognized the touch. "I am canceling the Tokyo teleconference," Elena said softly, taking the files from Clara's grip and setting them aside on the carpet. "And I locked the elevators. We are not talking about quarterly reports tonight." Clara's breathing hitched. Panic flickered in her hazel eyes as she instinctively curled one arm across her abdomen, a protective gesture that sent a fierce surge of warmth straight through Elena's chest. "Did I make a mistake on the ledger?" Clara asked quickly, her voice wavering. "If you need me to work through the weekend to fix something, I can stay. Please don't reassign me." "Look at me, Clara," Elena commanded gently. Slowly, Clara lifted her chin. Her eyes met Elena's glowing golden irises. Without breaking eye contact, Elena reached into her blazer pocket. She withdrew the small cylinder and placed it delicately between them on the polished desk. The screen still displayed the crisp lettering: "Pregnant, 7+ weeks." The silence that followed was absolute. Clara stared at the stick as if it were a lit fuse. All air vanished from her lungs. She let out a broken sound, shrinking against her chair. Her hands flew up to cover her mouth as tears spilled over her lashes, tracing paths down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," Clara choked out, sobbing so hard her frame shook. "Please, Ms. Vance, I'm sorry. I know company policy forbids personal disruptions. I was going to submit my resignation tomorrow morning before anyone noticed. I won't cause a scandal. Just let me leave quietly." Elena felt her heart fracture at the terror in Clara's voice. Without a thought for decorum, Elena shifted forward on her knees and closed the distance between them. She wrapped both hands firmly around Clara's wrists, pulling the Omega's hands gently away from her face. "Clara," Elena said, her voice fierce with quiet intensity. "Breathe. Do not apologize to me. And stop talking about resigning." "But you hate emotional complications," Clara wept, her defenses crumbling under weeks of solitary terror. "You fire people who bring drama here. I didn't mean for this to happen. It was the solstice masquerade gala. The storm knocked out power, and my suppressants failed. I couldn't see anything in the dark library. An alpha found me, she helped me through the heat haze, and I left before dawn because I was terrified." Clara squeezed her eyes shut, tears cascading down her cheeks. "I wore a silver mask, and she wore a Venetian mask. She smelled like winter cedar and ozone, like the storm outside. I've been terrified every day since I missed my cycle, trying to figure out how to raise a child alone without ruining my career." Elena let out a shaky breath. Her golden eyes softened into molten honey. Deliberately, she took Clara's trembling hand and pressed her palm directly against her own collarbone, right over her scent gland. At the same time, Elena dropped the mental barriers holding back her pheromones. Instantly, the office was flooded with pure alpha scent. Crisp mountain cedar, storm ozone, and protective shelter wrapped around Clara like a velvet blanket. Clara gasped. Her hazel eyes flew wide open. Her breath caught as her hand rested against Elena's pulse point, feeling the steady thrum of the exact heartbeat she had clung to in the dark library 49 days ago. "It was winter cedar and ozone, Clara," Elena whispered softly, brushing a stray tear from Clara's cheek. "And you wore a silver ribbon in your hair. You smelled like sweet vanilla blossom and rain." Clara's lips parted in stunned disbelief. "You?" "It was me," Elena murmured, leaning her forehead gently against Clara's. "I have spent 7 weeks searching every guest list in this city for you. You are not alone, Clara. And you are never resigning." The ride from the 42nd floor to the garage transpired in a cocoon of silence. Outside the elevator shaft, the storm lashed the city with relentless rain, but inside, the air was warm with the fusion of mountain cedar and sweet vanilla blossom. Clara stood 2 inches from Elena's side, her trembling hands loosely enveloped in Elena's warm grip. Every time the elevator descended a floor, Clara's gaze flickered up to study her employer's profile. In the boardroom, Elena Vance possessed the cold lines of a marble statue. But right now, under the recessed lights of the car, Elena's jaw relaxed, her golden irises soft and steady as she kept her thumb gently stroking the sensitive pulse point at Clara's inner wrist. "Your hands are ice," Elena murmured as the doors chimed open into the underground garage. Without waiting for a reply, she unbuttoned her tailored blazer and draped it over Clara's shoulders. The silk lining retained Elena's body heat and deep aroma of alpha pheromones, causing Clara's tense shoulders to drop an inch. Elena's armored car waited near the private elevator. When Clara attempted to reach for the passenger door handle out of ingrained habit, Elena intercepted her wrist. "No more duties, Clara," Elena said softly, opening the door herself and guiding Clara into the plush interior. "From this moment forward, your only responsibility is resting." During the 15-minute drive through rain-slick streets toward the financial district's residential tower, Elena kept the cabin temperature set to a cozy 72 degrees. She opened the console armrest and handed Clara a bottle of electrolyte water along with a clean, damp cotton cloth. "Take off the blockers, Clara," Elena requested gently, her voice vibrating with a low, grounding timbre. "Those medical patches restrict your circulation and irritate your scent glands. You do not need to hide in my presence." Not anymore. Clara swallowed hard, her hazel eyes glistening. With shaking fingers, she reached up to the sides of her neck and peeled away the heavy medical patches she had worn every day for 3 years. She wiped away the residue with the damp cotton. The moment her glands were bare, a rich bloom of pheromones filled the cabin. Sweet Madagascar vanilla, warm summer rain, and the unmistakable undertone of a pregnant Omega settling into safety. Elena let out a low hum of pure alpha satisfaction. Her chest expanded as her senses drank in the scent she had dreamed of every night since the solstice. She leaned across the seat, resting her palm gently against Clara's cheek, thumbing across the flushed skin of her cheekbone. "Beautiful," Elena whispered softly. "So sweet." Clara leaned her face into Elena's palm, tears welling up anew, not from terror this time, but from relief that felt like breathing clean air after weeks underwater. When the private elevator opened directly into Elena's residence on the 66th floor, Clara blinked in quiet astonishment. She had managed Elena's professional calendar for years, but had never stepped inside her home. She had imagined a cold fortress of concrete and glass. Instead, the penthouse was expansive, warm, and deeply inviting. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the panoramic stormy skyline, while velvet sofas, mahogany bookshelves, and thick wool rugs softened the space. "Sit by the fire," Elena instructed gently, guiding Clara toward the deep sofa in front of the hearth. With a voice command to her smart home system, natural gas flames flickered to life, casting golden light across the room. Before Clara could protest that she was damp from the rain, Elena disappeared down the hallway toward the master suite. She returned minutes later carrying a thick cashmere sweater in deep charcoal and fleece trousers. "The bath is running in the master suite," Elena said, kneeling beside the sofa to unlace Clara's damp loafers. She removed the shoes with precision, massaging Clara's chilled arches before slipping warm socks onto her feet. "I added organic colloidal oatmeal and unscented oils. Nothing that will trigger nausea." Clara stared down at the CEO kneeling at her feet like a devoted guardian. "Elena, you don't have to wait on me like this. I can draw my own bath." Elena looked up, her golden eyes flashing with gentle humor. "Clara, for 49 days you carried my child in secret while managing my 12-hour schedules, fielding calls, and coordinating meetings without dropping a file. Allow me to take care of you." After 20 minutes soaking in the warm comfort of the master tub, surrounded by Elena's ambient cedar scent, Clara emerged dressed in the oversized cashmere sweater. The fabric swallowed her petite frame, smelling so richly of her alpha that Clara felt a deep purr rumble low in her chest. When she stepped back into the kitchen, she found Elena standing by the marble island, her blazer discarded and shirt sleeves rolled up. On the counter sat a steaming bowl of ginger-infused chicken bouillon, sourdough toast, and peppermint tea. Beside the tray sat a small velvet-lined box. "Eat as much of the broth as you can manage," Elena murmured, pulling out a cushioned stool and helping Clara sit. "It will settle your stomach." As Clara took her first warm spoonful of soup, her eyes fell upon the velvet box. "What is that?" Elena walked around the island and flipped the lid open. Inside lay a slender bracelet crafted entirely of braided silver thread and blue silk. It was an exact replica of the masquerade ribbon Clara had worn at the solstice gala. "When you vanished at dawn," Elena softly explained, brushing her fingers against the braid, "the only thing left on the library floor was your ribbon. I kept it inside my suit pocket every day until the fabric frayed. I had this made last month so I would never lose the memory of your scent." Elena lifted the silver bracelet and gently wrapped it around Clara's slender wrist, securing the clasp. "You are home, Clara," Elena whispered, kissing the crown of her hair. "You and our pup are safe." Sunlight streamed through the architectural glass panes of the master bedroom, painting long golden rectangles across the polished dark floor. Clara woke slowly from the deepest, most restorative sleep she had experienced in 3 years. Her body felt weightless, anchored only by luxurious cotton sheets and the lingering aroma of mountain cedar. She rolled onto her side. Elena was not in bed. Her pillow was cool, though the sheets still carried the warmth of her presence. A primal hum vibrated low inside Clara's chest. Without industrial scent blockers or daily hormone suppressants suppressing her biology, her natural omega instincts surged forward with absolute clarity. The room smelled intensely of her alpha, yet an overwhelming instinctual urge urged Clara to claim the space, to construct a physical sanctuary suitable for her developing pup. Moved by subconscious compulsion, Clara gathered plush pillows from across the king-sized mattress. She arranged them into a crescent ring against the mahogany headboard. She reached over to the velvet armchair and pulled 2 cashmere throws, weaving them carefully into the wall of pillows. Still unsatisfied, she slid off the bed and padded into Elena's walk-in closet. Guided entirely by scent, Clara bypassed stiff corporate suits and found a shelf of Elena's personal loungewear, heavy charcoal hoodies, soft sleep shirts, and thick fleece robes drenched in winter cedar. She carried 5 shirts back to the bed, tucking the soft fabrics into the center of the nest until every square inch radiated warm, unmistakable safety. Clara curled directly into the center of the arrangement, pulling Elena's darkest hoodie to her cheek with a contented sigh. "Good morning," a low voice purred from the doorway. Clara froze, flushing bright crimson as she realized what she had done. She looked up to see Elena leaning casually against the doorframe, holding a polished mahogany tray. Elena wore dark slacks and a white Oxford shirt with the collar unbuttoned, her hair damp from a morning shower. Elena's golden irises dilated instantly as her gaze swept across the bed. Seeing Clara nestled inside a nest made from her own clothing struck Elena's alpha instincts like a bolt of electricity. A deep growl of contentment rumbled in Elena's throat as she stepped into the bedroom, her winter cedar pheromones flaring bright with possessive pride. "Elena," Clara stammered, attempting to sit up. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rummage through your closet. My nesting instincts woke up." "Do not apologize, my love," Elena murmured softly, setting the tray onto the nightstand. She climbed onto the mattress, taking care not to disrupt the pillow walls, and knelt beside Clara. "You made a magnificent nest. My clothes belong to you now." Elena lifted a plate from the tray, presenting warm sourdough toast topped with avocado, beside a crystal glass of organic ginger juice and 2 prescribed prenatal vitamins. "Eat your breakfast while I handle the morning briefing." Before Clara could take her second bite, Elena's secure tablet buzzed on the glass coffee table. The screen flashed with high-priority red lettering. "Incoming encrypted video call, Victoria Sterling, VP of Acquisitions." Clara tensed immediately, her vanilla scent spiking with anxiety. Victoria Sterling was notorious across Vance Enterprises, an aggressive alpha who spent years attempting to undermine Elena's authority while constantly belittling support staff. "Don't worry," Elena whispered, kissing Clara's temple. She picked up the tablet and tapped the screen to connect. She did not blur the background or move to another room. She sat upright right on the edge of the bed, her arm resting protectively across the wall of Clara's nest. On the screen, Victoria appeared sitting in the 42nd floor boardroom, flanked by 2 legal counsel. Victoria's face was taut with indignation. "Elena," Victoria began sharply without greeting. "We have a critical situation. It is 9 o'clock, and your executive assistant has failed to report for duty. Furthermore, IT records indicate you cancelled the Tokyo teleconference last night without board consultation. I demanded HR open an immediate disciplinary file on Miss Reed for gross negligence and abandonment of post." Elena's expression transformed instantly from warm honey to glacial ice. Her golden irises hardened into obsidian blades. "You demanded an HR file on my assistant?" Elena asked, her voice dangerously quiet, carrying a frequency that made the tablet speakers crackle. "Absolutely," Victoria scoffed. "Miss Reed has been visibly sluggish for weeks. If she cannot handle executive hours without slackening off, I will have security pack her desk and terminate her contract by noon." "Victoria," Elena interrupted, her voice dropping an octave into an authoritative alpha command that demanded submission across the digital connection. "If you or anyone in HR touches a single paper on Clara Reed's desk, I will personally dissolve your acquisitions department and terminate your stock vesting contracts before lunch." On the screen, Victoria blanched, her mouth falling open in shock. "On what grounds? She is an administrative employee." "She is my bonded partner and the mother of my heir," Elena declared with crystal-clear finality. Beside Elena, Clara let out a soft gasp, her fingers gripping the cashmere sheets. Effective immediately, Elena continued coldly into the camera. Miss Reed is promoted to executive liaison and is on indefinite maternity sanctuary under my personal protection. Any disrespect directed toward her within Vance Enterprises will be treated as a direct assault on my leadership. Am I understood, Victoria? Victoria swallowed visibly, trembling under Elena's presence. Yes, Ms. Vance. Perfectly understood. Good. Cancel my morning appointments. Elena severed the connection with a single tap. She tossed the tablet onto the carpet and turned back to Clara, her glacial exterior melting into warm honey as she pulled the stunned Omega gently against her chest. Eat your toast, my love. Nobody will ever threaten you again. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, a private medical team arrived at the 66th floor penthouse. Rather than subjecting Clara to waiting rooms or surveillance near the hospital district, Elena had summoned Dr. Evelyn Thorne, a world-renowned specialist in prenatal omega physiology and chief obstetrician to the city's elite families. Dr. Thorne set up a diagnostic console inside the quiet sanctuary of the library. Soft jazz drifted from surround sound speakers, while the fire bathed the room in golden warmth. Clara reclined on a plush velvet chaise lounge, draped in Elena's cashmere throw. Elena sat on a cushioned stool at her bedside, her hand resting firmly over Clara's palm, her thumb tracing steady circles against Clara's knuckles to keep her heart rate calm. Your vitals are stabilizing beautifully, Miss Reed, Dr. Thorne noted with a gentle smile as she adjusted the transducer wand. Now that you have discontinued those scent blockers, your natural endocrine levels are rebounding. Let us take a look at our little passenger. Dr. Thorne applied botanical gel to Clara's lower abdomen and pressed the diagnostic wand against her skin. On the high-definition monitor across the library, swirling shades of grey materialized into a clear ultrasound image. In the center of the dark uterine cavity rested a tiny gestational sac. Inside it sat a curled, glowing bean no larger than a raspberry. There, Dr. Thorne murmured softly, pointing a stylus at the rhythmic flicker in the center of the shape. 7 weeks and 4 days. Right on schedule. Now, listen closely. Dr. Thorne tapped a dial on the console panel. Suddenly, the library filled with a rapid, thundering acoustic beat. Swish thump, swish thump, swish thump, vibrating at 162 beats per minute. It sounded like the galloping hooves of a thoroughbred racehorse across a track, strong, clear, and undeniably alive. Clara gasped, her free hand flying to her lips as tears flooded her hazel eyes. That's the baby. That is your pup's heartbeat, Dr. Thorne confirmed warmly. Exceptionally strong cardiac rhythm. The placenta is well positioned, and there are no signs of stress. Beside the chaise lounge, Elena Vance sat completely motionless. The woman who routinely negotiated multi-billion-dollar mergers without shifting posture stared at the monitor with wide, dilated golden eyes. Her chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. Slowly, Elena lifted her free hand toward the screen before pulling it back to lay her warm palm directly over the lower curve of Clara's abdomen, right above the transducer wand. A single, brilliant diamond tear escaped the corner of Elena's eye, tracking silently down her sharp cheekbone. Listen to our pup, Clara, Elena whispered, her voice rough with awe and heavy with emotion. Her alpha pheromones saturated the library with the scent of sun-warmed cedar, honey, and devotion. So strong. Absolutely perfect. Clara reached down and covered Elena's hand with her own, intertwining their fingers over her warm skin. Because they have you protecting us. After Dr. Thorne printed 12 sonogram images and packed her equipment, she sat across from Elena and Clara at the desk to discuss prenatal protocols. Miss Reed's biology has endured cortisol strain from weeks of anxiety combined with chemical blocker usage, Dr. Thorne explained professionally. To ensure optimal placental development during the second trimester, her omega system requires continuous reassurance that her bonded alpha is present and invested. Name your requirements, Doctor, Elena instructed immediately. Whatever adjustments are necessary, consider them done. It is simpler than medicine, Ms. Vance, Dr. Thorne smiled softly. She requires scent marking. Direct, consistent pheromonal transfer onto her scent glands at the base of her throat and wrists at least twice daily. Furthermore, Resting within an alpha-scented nest and physical skin-to-skin contact during sleep will maintain her emotional equilibrium far more effectively than prescriptions. When Dr. Thorne departed at 4 o'clock, the penthouse fell back into quiet. Outside, the storm had cleared, revealing a sunset streaked in shades of purple and molten gold. Elena guided Clara back toward the master suite, shutting the mahogany doors to seal their sanctuary. She guided Clara to sit on the edge of the bed, right inside the protective circle of the cashmere nest. Elena knelt on the mattress right in front of her. Her golden eyes were intent, reverent, and burning with gentle affection. Dr. Thorne gave precise instructions. "My love," Elena murmured, reaching out to loosen the collar of Clara's sweater, exposing the delicate skin along the left side of Clara's neck where her primary scent gland pulsed. "May I mark you?" Clara's breath hitched. In Omegaverse society, an alpha scent marking was a profound claim, far deeper than corporate titles. It told every competitor that this Omega was cherished, protected, and spoken for. "Yes," Clara whispered softly, tilting her head back to bare her throat completely. "Please, Elena." Elena leaned forward slowly. Her warm hands cupped Clara's jawline, thumbs resting gently against her cheekbones. She leaned down and pressed her lips directly against the pulse point at the base of Clara's throat. Rather than biting or bruising, Elena used firm pressure, nuzzling her nose and lips against the scent gland while releasing a concentrated wave of winter cedar pheromones. She inhaled Clara's sweet vanilla scent deeply, mingling their aromas until they fused into a harmonious blend of forest and sweet rain. A deep purr started in Clara's throat, an instinctual omega vibration of pure bliss and security. Her eyelids drifted shut, her fingers tangling into the dark silk of Elena's hair as the warmth of the scent mark spread across her skin like sunlight. When Elena pulled back minutes later, the skin of Clara's neck bore a subtle flush and radiated the unmistakable, commanding scent of Elena Vance. "Perfect," Elena purred against Clara's lips, brushing a tender kiss across her mouth. "Now everyone will know you belong to me." By the 22nd week of pregnancy, the subtle secrets of the 42nd floor had blossomed into a radiant reality. Inside the 66th floor penthouse, Clara's once petite frame had transformed. Her abdomen rounded into a firm, beautiful curve that could no longer be concealed behind knit sweaters or tailored blazers. Her skin possessed a luminous golden glow, and the sweet aroma of vanilla blossom and summer rain had deepened into rich amber, the unmistakable scent of a bonded omega resting securely in her second trimester. With physical changes came distinct pregnancy cravings that struck at all hours. At midnight on a rainy Thursday, Clara found herself sitting inside her cashmere nest, overcome by an overwhelming craving for sliced ripe strawberries drizzled with wildflower honey and paired with smoked salmon on toasted rye bread. Before Clara could even swing her legs over the edge of the mattress, Elena stepped out of the adjoining bathroom. Without asking a single question, the titan of the financial district slipped on house slippers, descended to the gourmet kitchen, and returned 10 minutes later bearing a polished mahogany tray loaded with perfectly prepared salmon toast and fresh organic strawberries drizzled in golden wildflower honey. "You spoil me terribly, Elena," Clara murmured between happy bites, leaning her cheek against Elena's warm shoulder. "I am nourishing my heir and cherishing my mate," Elena purred smoothly, resting her broad hand gently over Clara's baby bump. Beneath her palm, a sudden sharp flutter thumped against the uterine wall, a distinct, energetic kick from their developing pup. Elena's golden irises flared bright with adoring pride as she leaned down to press a soft, lingering kiss right over the kick. That Saturday marked the annual Spring Foundation Gala, the most prestigious formal gathering of the city's corporate elite. For 10 years, Elena Vance had attended the event alone, treating the red carpet with glacial indifference. This year, Elena had entirely different plans. At 7 o'clock, inside the master dressing suite, Clara stood before the full-length gilded mirror. Elena's private couturier had designed a custom gown specifically crafted to celebrate her pregnancy. Cut from heavy emerald silk, the gown featured an off-the-shoulder neckline that highlighted the rich cedar scent mark blooming along Clara's neck. The bodice draped gracefully over her rounded belly, falling to the floor in fluid waves. Elena emerged wearing a bespoke ivory formal tuxedo with satin lapels and emerald cufflinks that matched Clara's gown. She approached from behind, wrapping her arms gently around Clara's waist and resting her chin on her shoulder. "You are breathtaking, my love," Elena whispered, her reflection catching Clara's warm hazel eyes in the mirror. From her velvet blazer pocket, Elena withdrew an heirloom platinum necklace featuring a pear-cut Colombian emerald surrounded by diamonds, the historic crest jewel of the Vance dynasty. With meticulous care, Elena fastened the clasp around Clara's neck. The jewel rested directly over Clara's collarbone, framing the scent mark at her throat. "Tonight, the entire city will know who holds my heart," Elena murmured, turning Clara around to drop a tender kiss onto her lips. When Elena's armored limousine pulled up to the grand marble entrance of the conservatory, a sea of photographers milled behind velvet ropes. For weeks, rumors had circulated regarding the disappearance of Elena Vance's assistant and Elena's refusal to travel abroad. The moment the doors opened, the flashbulb barrage began. Elena stepped out first onto the crimson carpet. She wore her commanding alpha aura like a royal mantle, sweeping the crowd with unshakable authority. She turned back toward the open door, extending her hand with gentle chivalry. A collective gasp rippled through the press corps as Clara Reed stepped onto the red carpet. Framed in glowing emerald silk, wearing the Vance heirloom jewel, Clara looked nothing like the shy assistant who used to hide behind stacks of folders. She radiated serenity and grace, one hand resting naturally beneath her round baby bump. Instead of rushing past photographers, Elena paused at the top of the marble steps right in front of the press pool. She stepped close to Clara, wrapping one arm possessively around her waist while placing her palm proudly over the center of Clara's baby bump. A flurry of camera shutters erupted like gunfire. "Ms. Vance," a reporter shouted above the din, "can you confirm the rumors? Is Miss Reed your bonded partner?" Elena looked directly into the primary broadcast camera. Her voice rang out clear and calm across the Grand Plaza. "Clara Reed is my bonded mate, my equal partner, and the mother of my firstborn child," Elena declared proudly. "She is the heart of my house and the future of Vance Enterprises." Inside the grand ballroom, beneath crystal chandeliers, every corporate rival stood transfixed as Elena led Clara onto the parquet floor. Victoria Sterling watched from the champagne bar, silenced completely by the display of devotion. Several board members approached to offer formal congratulations, bowing respectfully before Elena's chosen mate. Throughout the evening, Elena never let Clara leave her side for more than 30 seconds. Whenever an aristocrat approached to speak, Elena stood slightly angled in front of Clara, a protective shield ensuring no excessive noise or sharp perfume overwhelmed her omega. She offered Clara sparkling apple cider in crystal flutes, rubbing smooth circles across her lower back whenever she stood for too long. At 9:30, as the orchestra began a slow waltz, Elena led Clara to the center of the dance floor. Holding Clara close against her ivory tuxedo blazer, moving gently to the cello rhythm, Elena rested her forehead against Clara's. "How are you feeling, my love?" Elena whispered softly against her ear. Clara smiled, tears of pure joy glistening in her hazel eyes as their pup delivered another gentle kick against Elena's waist. "I have never felt more cherished in my entire life." By the 34th week of gestation, summer rainstorms had yielded to clear autumn mornings across the city. Inside the 66th floor penthouse, time moved to the gentle cadence of Clara's final trimester. Carrying the rapidly growing pup of an alpha titan brought inevitable demands. Clara's lower back ached under the weight of her full belly, her ankles swelled after standing for 20 minutes, and unpredictable Braxton Hicks tightening episodes frequently left her breathless. To accommodate her Omega's third trimester needs, Elena Vance executed the most radical restructuring in Vance Enterprises history. She relocated 90% of executive operations directly to her penthouse library. Boardroom presentations were conducted via secure video feed from her desk, and vice presidents delivered reports to ground-floor security couriers rather than disturbing the 66th floor. Whenever Clara let out a soft sigh of discomfort from her cashmere nest on the sofa, Elena immediately muted multi-billion-dollar international conference calls without explanation. She would cross the carpeted floor, kneel beside Clara, and spend 40 minutes massaging her lower back and swollen ankles with organic oils scented with mountain cedar and lavender. "Elena," Clara protested gently on a Tuesday afternoon, resting her hand over Elena's shoulders as her alpha massaged her calves. You left the Zurich Banking Committee sitting on hold for 30 minutes. The Swiss banking sector has existed for centuries, querida, Elena purred smoothly, kissing the inside of Clara's knee. My daughter's mother requires leg decompression. My priorities are precisely where they belong. Later that afternoon, after Clara woke from a 2-hour nap, Elena took her warm hand and led her down the sunlit east corridor toward mahogany doors that had remained locked behind velvet drapes for the past month. Close your eyes, my love, Elena murmured softly, placing her palms over Clara's eyes. Clara smiled, allowing herself to be guided 3 steps forward into the room. When Elena dropped her hands and stepped back, Clara's breath caught in her throat. Rather than a conventional nursery, Elena had commissioned master artisans to construct an enchanted woodland sanctuary specifically calibrated for omega nesting instincts and alpha pup development. The walls were lined with custom natural mountain cedar panels that released a continuous aroma of alpine forest. Across the vaulted ceiling, muralists had painted a breathtaking, astronomically precise depiction of the winter solstice night sky, the exact constellation alignment overhead on the night Elena and Clara met during the masquerade blackout. In the center of the room stood a handcrafted crib carved from solid Lebanon cedar, draped in organic silk netting and lined with hypoallergenic lambswool mattresses. Beside the crib sat a custom plush daybed upholstered in charcoal velvet, wide enough for both Elena and Clara to sleep beside their newborn without leaving the sanctuary. "Oh, Elena," Clara breathed, tears of joy filling her hazel eyes as she walked across the wool rug toward the crib. Resting inside the cedar crib was a wicker basket containing dozens of infant garments, tiny cream organic cotton harnesses, merino wool booties, and miniature fleece sleep sacks embroidered with the Vance silver crest. Clara reached into the basket, lifting a tiny knitted sweater no larger than her palm. She pressed the soft fabric against her cheek, her natural vanilla and honey pheromones flaring bright with profound maternal redness. She arranged 4 tiny blankets along the cedar slats, instinctively scent marking each garment with her wrist so their pup would wake surrounded by familiarity. "Do you approve of the sanctuary?" Elena asked softly, stepping up behind Clara and wrapping her arms around Clara's baby bump. "It is the most magical room I have ever seen," Clara whispered, leaning her back against Elena's chest. "You thought of every detail, even the solstice constellations overhead." "I wanted our daughter to wake up beneath the exact stars that guided me to her mother," Elena murmured, turning Clara around inside the embrace. She leaned down, resting her hands against Clara's sides while dropping her head to listen directly to the heartbeat pulsing beneath Clara's emerald maternity dress. Right on cue, the baby shifted inside the womb, delivering a firm kick directly against Elena's cheekbone. Elena chuckled low and rich, rubbing her nose against the curve of Clara's belly. Feisty and strong. She has her mother's resilience and her alpha's determination. Elena guided Clara to sit on the velvet daybed. She sat beside her, pulling Clara's feet onto her lap to remove her slippers. Reaching for a bottle of warmed cedar oil on the side table, Elena poured a drop onto her palms and began working smooth circles along Clara's tired arches. As the soothing herbal warmth seeped into her skin, Clara watched her alpha with quiet reverence. For 3 years at the corporate firm, she had admired Elena Vance as an unreachable ice queen. Now, seeing this powerful CEO sitting on a nursery floor, hands glazed in oil, whispering adoring promises to her unborn daughter, Clara felt her heart expand beyond capacity. She leaned forward, pressing a tender kiss against the top of Elena's head as her vanilla pheromones enveloped them both in absolute harmony. "Dr. Thorne examined me this morning and confirmed the baby dropped into birth position," Clara remarked softly, running her fingers through Elena's dark hair. "Her heartbeat is strong and steady. We only have about 3 weeks left before she arrives." Elena paused her massage, lifting Clara's foot to press a reverent kiss against her ankle. Her golden eyes glowed with absolute protection. "We are ready, my love. Whenever our pup decides to arrive, I will be holding your hand every single second. You have transformed my world, Clara Reed, and I will dedicate every breath I take to guarding our family." 3 weeks later, on the first freezing midnight of December, the city was enveloped by the first snowstorm of the winter season. Large feathery snowflakes drifted past the 66th-floor windows, turning the view into a silent white panorama that mirrored the exact weather of the winter solstice masquerade 1 year prior. Inside the master suite, Clara awoke at 3:15 a.m. to a rhythmic tightening low in her abdomen. Unlike the Braxton Hicks contractions she had experienced over the previous month, this wave carried a structural intensity that wrapped entirely around her lower back and peaked with biological urgency. She gasped softly, her fingers gripping the edge of the duvet as her water broke, dampening the sheets. Instantly, Elena was awake. Alpha reflexes honed by months of preparation registered the distinct shift in Clara's breathing and the sudden concentration of labor pheromones flooding the bedroom. "Clara," Elena said immediately, sitting upright and wrapping one arm around Clara's shoulders while reaching for her emergency terminal. "Contractions." "Yes," Clara breathed through clenched teeth as another wave crested, her vanilla scent spiking with anxiety. "Elena, she's coming. Right now." "I have you," Elena murmured in a steady alpha purr that vibrated directly against Clara's spine. With one tap, she alerted Dr. Evelyn Thorne's mobile obstetric team stationed 3 blocks away on 24-hour standby. "Dr. Thorne is en route. We are staying right here in our sanctuary." Within 12 minutes, the private elevator delivered Dr. Thorne and 2 neonatal nurses directly into the penthouse. Moving with efficient precision, the medical team transformed the cedar nursery into a sterile birthing suite, adjusting ambient lighting to a soft firelight glow while keeping medical monitors silent to avoid stressing the laboring Omega. By 5 o'clock in the morning, contractions were arriving every 3 minutes. Clara knelt on the organic wool rug inside the nursery, her forearms resting over the cushioned edge of the velvet daybed. Her body shook with exertion, sweat dampening her hair as she labored through the intense transition phase. Elena knelt right behind her on the rug, her broad chest supporting Clara's back, arms wrapped securely around her waist. She had stripped off her Oxford shirt, allowing Clara uninhibited access to her bare collarbone and scent glands. Elena saturated the room with dense waves of mountain cedar and storm ozone, providing the essential pheromonal fuel Clara's biology required to manage pain. "I can't," Clara sobbed as a peak contraction seized her abdomen, her fingers digging hard into Elena's forearms until her nails left crescent indentations in Elena's skin. "Elena, it hurts too much. I'm so tired." Instead of flinching from the pain of Clara's grip, Elena tightened her embrace, pressing her lips directly against the scent mark at the base of Clara's throat. "Look at me, my brave girl," Elena commanded gently, her voice vibrating with unwavering strength. "You survived 7 weeks of solitary terror. You carried our daughter while managing my corporate world. You are the strongest Omega on this earth. Lean your weight into me. Take my strength." Clara tilted her head back against Elena's shoulder, inhaling a deep draught of winter cedar. The familiar aroma acted like an anchor, clearing the fog of exhaustion and replacing her fear with maternal instinct. At 6:15, as dawn light began filtering through the nursery windows, Dr. Thorne looked up from the foot of the daybed. "Full dilation, Miss Reed," Dr. Thorne announced calmly. "The baby's head is crowned and perfectly aligned. On the next contraction, I need you to push with everything you have." Clara gripped Elena's hands tightly, bracing her heels against the rug. As the next massive wave surged through her body, Clara let out a resonant cry of exertion, pushing forward with all her physical power while Elena held her upright, pouring grounding alpha pheromones over her like a shield. "Once more, Clara," Dr. Thorne encouraged. "Head is delivered. One final push for the shoulders." With one last heroic surge of strength, Clara pushed forward against Elena's embrace. Suddenly, all pressure vanished. At 6:24 a.m., the quiet sanctuary of the 66th floor was pierced by a clear, lusty newborn cry. "Delivery complete," Dr. Thorne announced with exultation. "Time of birth, 6:24 a.m. You have a magnificent baby alpha girl." Clara collapsed back against Elena's chest, sobbing with overwhelming relief as Dr. Thorne cleared the infant's airway and placed the warm, squirming newborn directly onto Clara's bare chest. The baby weighed 7 pounds and 8 ounces, possessing dark silk hair exactly like Elena's and pink skin covered in vernix. But what struck Clara most was the scent rising from the tiny bundle. Warm vanilla blossom wrapped in crisp mountain cedar, the exact harmonious fusion of both her mothers. Elena leaned forward over Clara's shoulder, her golden eyes glistening with tears as Dr. Thorne handed her sterilized scissors. With trembling fingers, the billionaire titan cut the umbilical cord, severing the physical tether and introducing their daughter to the world. "Hello, little wolf," Elena whispered, her voice cracking with awe as she stroked one finger across the baby's tiny fist. Immediately, the newborn ceased crying, her eyelids opening to reveal deep golden irises that mirrored her alpha mother's gaze. The tiny fingers wrapped securely around Elena's index finger. Clara looked up at Elena, her hazel eyes shining through tears of rapture as she cradled their child against her beating heart. "She knows your voice. She remembers every song." Elena leaned down, pressing a lingering, reverent kiss first to Clara's lips, then to the crown of their newborn daughter's head. "Because I have been singing to her every night inside your womb. Welcome to our sanctuary, Aurora Elena Vance. You will never know a single day without our love, our shelter, and our absolute devotion." 1 year later, the city was once again draped in the sparkling white velvet of the winter solstice season. Inside the 66th floor penthouse, morning sunlight glinted off, frost tracing the glass panes. The scent of mountain cedar and sweet vanilla blossom was no longer a secret confined to an after-hours office corridor. It was the permanent, harmonious soul of the Vance household. On the plush rug of the cedar nursery, little Aurora Elena Vance toddled forward on wobbly legs. At 12 months old, she was a vibrant alpha pup with deep golden irises, a crown of dark curls, and unshakable curiosity. She wore a cream fleece sweater embroidered with the family crest, laughing brightly as she chased a rolling cedar ball straight into Clara's open arms. "Caught you, my little wolf." Clara laughed softly, scooping her daughter up and pressing a kiss against her warm cheek. Clara Reed, now formally styled across corporate filings as Clara Vance Reed, bore no resemblance to the pale assistant who dropped her folders 20 months ago. Her chestnut hair flowed freely over her shoulders, her hazel eyes sparkled with confidence, and the dark cedar scent mark along her throat glowed with radiant vitality. Footsteps sounded from the doorway as Elena entered. She wore a tailored charcoal wool suit, silver cuffs catching the light. The CEO of Vance Enterprises stopped inside the room, her gaze softening immediately as she took in her mate and daughter. "Good morning, my loves," Elena rumbled warmly. At the sound of her alpha mother's voice, Aurora squealed with delight, wriggling out of Clara's embrace to toddle rapidly toward Elena. Elena dropped gracefully to one knee, catching her daughter in one strong arm and swinging her high into the air before tucking her securely against her shoulder. "Did you guard your mother while I was reviewing international accounts?" Elena asked, nuzzling Aurora's curls as a deep alpha purr rumbled in her chest. Aurora giggled, patting Elena's jawline with tiny hands. Elena extended her free hand to Clara. Clara took it naturally, allowing Elena to pull her up and wrap her free arm around her waist, drawing them into a complete embrace. Later that morning, for the first time since her maternity sanctuary began, Clara returned to the 42nd floor of Vance Enterprises. When the elevator doors parted, the bullpen fell into reverent silence. But this time, Clara did not walk toward the assistant's desk outside the corner office. That desk was now occupied by an administrative team. Instead, Clara walked beside Elena through the double glass doors of the executive suite. On the polished wall beside Elena Vance's nameplate read a pristine brass plaque, "Clara Vance Reed, Executive Vice President and Co-Chair." As they walked toward the boardroom for the annual Solstice shareholder address, even Victoria Sterling bowed her head in profound respect. The entire corporation knew that Clara Vance Reed was not just the CEO's bonded partner. She was the strategic heart and equal architect of the firm's future. That evening, when snow began falling outside the windows, Elena dismissed all staff and security to lower floors. Tonight belonged exclusively to their family. Inside the master sanctuary, a fire crackled in the marble hearth, casting dancing light across the cashmere nest where Aurora had fallen fast asleep, clutching her woven silver toy ribbon. Elena stood by the window holding 2 crystal flutes of spiced organic apple cider. She handed one to Clara as she stepped to her side, wrapping her arm securely around Clara's waist. "Do you know what tonight is?" Elena asked softly, looking out across the snowy skyline. "It is the winter solstice," Clara smiled, resting her head against Elena's shoulder. Exactly 2 years since the masquerade blackout. 2 years since the darkness brought you into my arms, Elena murmured, setting her flute onto the table. She took Clara's glass and set it beside her own before turning Clara around to face her directly. Slowly, deliberately, Elena descended onto one knee on the plush rug before the fireplace. Clara's breath hitched, her hazel eyes widening as Elena reached into her blazer pocket and withdrew a polished cedar box lined with midnight blue velvet. Inside sat 2 bespoke platinum mating bands, set with rare Colombian emeralds and inscribed along the inner band with their initials and the solstice date. In our society, a scent mark declares bond and protection, Elena said softly, her golden eyes glowing with devotion. But tonight, before our hearth and our daughter, I ask you for eternity. Clara Vance Reed, you transformed my sterile fortress into a home. You gave me hope, you gave me family, and you carry my heart for all remaining days. Will you formally accept this ring and rule Vance Enterprises and my life as my wife? Tears of pure rapture overflowed Clara's lashes. She knelt onto the rug right in front of Elena, cupping Elena's sharp cheekbones with both hands. Yes, Clara whispered, her voice trembling with profound joy. 1,000 times, yes, Elena. Elena slipped the platinum emerald band onto Clara's ring finger, and Clara took the matching band, sliding it securely onto Elena's hand. Elena pulled Clara into her arms, kissing her deeply with all the fierce devotion of an alpha who had found her eternal shelter. Across the room, little Aurora let out a sleepy sigh from inside her cashmere nest, her tiny fingers curling around Elena's cedar robe. Surrounded by falling winter snow, glowing firelight, and the sweet aroma of cedar and vanilla rain, Clara rested her cheek against Elena's chest, listening to the steady heartbeat that had saved her 2 years ago. She had once stood alone in an executive restroom, terrified of a digital screen in a waste bin. Now, she held the world in her hands, cherished, protected, and loved forever.